Bill Brady, Ecclesia Framework, speaking to you again on the topic of thinking generationally. Spoke to you last time about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Want to think about that Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph as four generations. They were a dysfunctional family, but after four generations, they had put their fourth generation on the throne of Egypt. I'm a U.S. citizen, and we think in America about coming to America, and that's the equivalent of coming to America as an immigrant and having your great-grandson or daughter become the President of the United States. That's a successful family. As dysfunctional as it was a successful family. Also, they had a family business, shepherding. I think about how it generally works, in my experience anyway. One generation starts a business or goes off to college and takes a profession up. They die. Their kids get the money in the will. The family home is sold and the money is split up. And those kids have already started their own life, gone out to start their own business, or gone to college and started their own profession. And when they die, the house is sold and the money is split up. And the next generation, which has already made a start on their own, having started their own business or become a plumber or whatever they've done, each generation has to start over fresh on their own, as opposed to a scenario where the first generation starts a family business, the kids grow up in that family business, and the family business gets passed on to the kids. The money's not split up and given out in an inheritance. The money-making business is inherited. And generation after generation, that small, let's say it started off as a small food cart somewhere. By the time the fourth generation comes around, it's a supermarket chain covering a quarter of the United States. We have a local business here in my area that did exactly that. And after 3 or 4 generations, now it's listed as one of the 10 best placed companies in America to work for. That was wise, as opposed to my family situation, where after 4 generations, we are scattered all over the country, each of us having followed our own profession after generation after generation, and going where the job was, and nobody living next to each other at all. It's a whole different thing. Cooperative effort on part of the family to operate as a family. Now, I'm thinking also of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Joseph, but let's go back to Adam. It went wrong, so things didn't build upon themselves the way they should have. We know that, for example, as I pointed out last time, disease is inherited in families. Not speaking that upon any of you, but let's just say that that's an example we can see around us of generation after generation fighting the same family disease, or the same family weakness being passed down generation after generation. Turn that around. When I talk to people about generational patterns like this, sometimes they say that's not fair. Well, I wasn't in charge of making things, but I always turn it around and say, I'm sure that God's intention was that it would be positive. Think about it for a moment. Instead of having negative things passed down through the generations, what would it have been like if Adam and Eve had not sinned? And Adam and Eve built something that they passed on to their kids, that their kids passed on to their kids, and their kids passed on to their kids, what would the earth have been like after, when Adam and Eve's great-grandchildren came on the scene as a fourth generation, with each generation building upon another? And furthermore, think about it for a moment, Adam and Eve are still living, and their children are still living, and Adam and Eve's grandchildren are still living, and all that wisdom is still available to the family. I think it'd be a whole different thing from having each generation start over fresh and make the same mistakes that the past generation made, or their own creative set of mistakes that nobody else has made before, because we all learn from making mistakes. But wouldn't it be something if a fourth generation came along and got to live and learn from the collective experience of three previous generations that are still living? I think that fourth generation wouldn't make a whole lot of mistakes. Now let's add in Adam and Eve's case, if they had not sinned, that there would not have been any need for bloodline cleansing, because there would have been no mixed bloodline, and there would have been no inheritance of the cumulative results of generations of sin being passed down through the bloodline, because there was no sin, and it was not being passed down through the bloodline in that case. I would expect that all kinds of positive things would be passed down through the bloodline, blessings rather than curses. And you say, wouldn't that be wonderful? But think about that for a moment. Isn't this generation that you are and I are part of, regardless of our age, this spiritual generation, aren't we like Adam and Eve in the garden? Almost. I mean, we're working on cleaning up our bloodlines. We are learning things in heavenly places that no previous generation recently has known. And we're passing it around amongst ourselves here at Ecclesia Framework. Older brothers and sisters are passing along their information to younger brothers and sisters. I'm speaking spiritually, not age-wise. People that are new to heavenly places can learn from the experience of people that are not quite so new to heavenly places. And really, we've only been at it for a couple of years now, when you think about it. What's it going to be like 10 years from now? Now let's take that and apply that to physical families. Brothers and sisters, if you are young and do not yet have a family, it is possible to get things fixed up and corrected and have children that really don't have nearly as much stuff in their bloodline passed along to them as we did. And isn't there hope that our grandchildren will be born without having anything negative passed along to them at all? Aren't we in a unique place? It's almost like Adam and Eve in the garden. We're not quite to that place yet, but we're getting there. And there is hope in my heart for generations spiritually building upon one another, and generations of our natural children who are also our spiritual children, because they're born again, baptized in the Holy Spirit, and ascending up into heavenly places from a young age, or from the age that they're born again. And isn't there hope that there's going to be children that are born to families that are already ascending into heavenly places and have already come into manifest sonship and are going to be able to train up their children from the very beginning, that is not so far away to start thinking generationally. We are the Adam and Eve generation, or close to it. We're like Abraham. We're going to have our Isaacs and our Jacobs, and our Isaacs are going to have their Jacobs, and those Jacobs are going to have Josephs. Can you imagine what a few spiritual generations from now are going to be doing in the way of relationship with the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and what they're going to be doing in terms of ruling, and how quickly they'll be doing it? Of course, by that time, we'll probably be ruling in galaxies someplace and moved on and leaving the earthly ruling behind to one of our next generations. Thinking generationally. For your own personal family situation, thinking generationally. Having children who are aware of what their destiny is from the very beginning because you have read their destiny book or begun to read their destiny book. And you've taught them how to do it from an early age. Their lives will be nothing like our lives. Their lives are going to be so much better than our lives. And they're going to learn from all of our mistakes and build on all of our successes and build on all of our experience in heavenly realms, talking about our natural children, who are also our spiritual children, and then talking about our spiritual children, who have no natural bloodline connection to us, but are part of the family because they'll have a spiritual connection to us. There is so much hope and possibility ahead. Thinking generationally.